Welcome to the Bible Momming Podcast, where we are parenting by the book. I'm your host, Paula Whidden. This podcast is for women who struggle with regular mom stuff, but also long to have their kids grow closer to Christ. It's a lifetime journey, and we're in it together. As a real mom, you just never know where I'll be podcasting from, but I'll always be available for you. Now let's get started. Hi, mamas. This is Paula Whidden, and I'm excited to have you here for episode 6. And I am really excited to share with you a conversation I had with the beautiful and charming Anissa Simon. She is a missionary in the Czech Republic with her husband, Cory. And one of the things that I love about this conversation that we had was that I was receiving insight about what it's like to be a mom and a missionary. Now, Anissa is a young, new mom, but it's so adventurous, the life that she has chosen. And if you've ever been wondering about that, what it's like to be a missionary or how you could be a mom in another country if you've been raised in the United States and some of the differences, then this is a great show for you. When you think of missionaries, you probably don't imagine rock musicians. And you also probably don't consider a need for missionaries in the Czech Republic, or at least I didn't, until I spoke with today's guest, Anissa Simon. She and her husband, Cory, became missionaries 3 years ago in the Czech Republic. They used their light show-filled, energetic, amazing talent to share the gospel with teens in this former communist country. There they discovered that teenagers are longing to hear about the hope of heaven and all the love Jesus has for them. Since they began serving, they also had their beautiful and dynamic daughter, Era, who is now 1.5. I was able to talk with her about life in the Czech Republic and how she is Bible momming where she is. Please join me as we share life. Here's this Bible mom story. How do the concerts, how do they look? What do you guys do that with? Are they at churches, or what is that? How is that?
So everything we do is with a local church in Czech. We travel, all around the country. So our goal is not to just have a night with these kids, introduce them to God, and then they have nowhere to go. So every concert we do is connected to a local church. But basically, we hold concerts in a city, and the local church and, friends in that city help us get people there and invite their friends. And throughout the concert, there are videos that kind of, in a creative way and a relevant way to youth, share the gospel. And after these 4 videos, there's about 10 minutes in the concert program where my husband, Cory, shares his testimony, how he came to God in a very simple, non-Christian word way, because a lot of these kids have never heard about Jesus in Czech Republic, have never really been introduced to Christianity. So he'll share his testimony, and after that, he'll give a challenge if these kids want to have a relationship with God like he has and accept Jesus into their lives. That's the way we can use the music and the concert to share the gospel. And then after that, we connect them to the local church. And when we leave the city, the local church gets to kind of take on these new believers and continue their journey.
See, now that's something that I think a lot of us don't realize. I mean, when I think about places that need missionaries, I often think about somebody in Africa or somebody in various parts of Asia, but part of Europe is not something that connects with a lot of people. So you're saying that they don't have much experience or knowledge of Jesus. Can you give the listeners a little bit of background to the best of your knowledge as to why that is? I mean, what has happened there that would make that not happen? Because it seems like to a lot of people, Europe would know Christianity.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's definitely not somewhere like Africa where they're poor or disconnected to the Western world. It's not like that at all. But they are in an area that was under communism for a lot of years. So maybe 100 years ago or something, there was a big Catholic or Christian presence in the Czech Republic. But under communism, you don't want to stand out. You can't have any kind of organized club or anything like that. So Christianity was a scary thing to pursue under communism. And that just dropped maybe 1 or 2 generations ago. So now the generation that we get to introduce to God, most of them either have no understanding of what Christianity really is, or if they do know what it is, it's still still a little scary to them. It's still a little like looked down upon because of the generations before them that were under communism, and it had a negative stigmatism to it.
There are a lot of kids that are interested. It's not like they're going, oh yeah, those Christians, they're here to visit us. They actually are very interested in what you guys have to say.
Yeah, exactly. It's very it's appealing to them to have a relationship with some kind of a higher power. And these kids are really deep. They think really deeply. So for them, they love the idea of something kind of outside of themselves and something in the spiritual world. Just the idea of sin and the idea of connecting with God, they're interested. It's just they've never heard it. Nobody's really been able to tell them. So now we have a group of maybe 60 missionaries or something from Czech and from the US that are working in Czech Republic to try to introduce them to Jesus. And it's been really successful. They want to hear it, which is awesome.
See, now that's not something, when you said that they want to hear about sin, that's something that I think that throws us, because I think we're afraid to tell people about sin, even our own kids, because we're intimidated by that. I think we're intimidated about even saying the word sin. So you mentioned that they want to hear about this. Can you help me understand that more?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I guess I haven't thought about it in a U.S. perspective in a long time. So I think the thing is, like, inherently they, or like the human race, know when they're doing something wrong, but maybe someone doesn't identify that as sin if they're not in the Christian world. So a lot of the times, because they don't know like these Christian words, the way we explain sin is just doing something wrong. And they know in their heart when they're lying, that it's wrong, or when they are having an affair, that it's wrong. There's something in their spirit that can tell them this is not the right thing to do, but they don't have a word or an explanation for it. And that's where we can introduce them to what sin is. And all of a sudden it's like a revelation in them, like, oh, what I'm feeling actually makes sense.
Okay. Now you guys have been living there for 3 years, and you're communicating to these kids in these concerts. What kind of a life is that for you, as far as just the culture, the differences there? Because it's such a different background for the whole country.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, doing ministry in Czech is very different than doing it in the US. But I think that it's also different in positive ways, not just negative ways. I think one of the positive ways is just that we have a clean slate. I think here, a lot of the times when we were introducing people to God, almost everyone we met had some idea of Christianity or some idea of what a church was. And a lot of them were maybe hurt by that, or their parents were hurt by that, or there was some preconceived idea of what being a Christian was. So I think one of the positive aspects of doing ministry there is that we get to show them Jesus on hopefully a somewhat clean slate. We want to just love them and just shine Jesus' light. And our prayer is always, I just want them to see Jesus in me. Even Cory, my husband, when he's on stage, I don't want them to be as attracted to the music or as attracted to, the fun party atmosphere. I just want Jesus to shine through and for them to see that first. And I think doing ministry in Czech, it's almost easier to do that. They can see Jesus without whatever negative idea they had of Christianity or of a Christian that they've met before. Yeah, if that makes sense.
I think so. Yeah. Now, just to edify us a little bit, what is your role? Because he's the musician singer, and he and his partner, they're the band. What's your role in the concerts?
Yeah. So, well, it's definitely changed since we first moved there. We moved there 3 years ago. So at that time, I was handling most of the kind of background work. So I was handling like the logistics, the administration, the finances, the merch, kind of like what went on behind the scenes before, during, and after the concert. But about a year and a half ago, I had a baby. So since then, my role has definitely changed. And I do some administration and logistics beforehand. But if we do make it out to a show, I get to just hang out, and as much as the baby lets me stay in the concert, just get to watch and experience it from the audience. So it's been a good change.
Does that enable you to talk more with some other people on the side sometimes?
Definitely. And that's been one of the coolest things is like the baby is a conversation starter for sure. If there's, someone I would kind of want to talk to, and before I would have to go up and maybe, just start a out of the blue conversation. Now I can come near them and we're both looking at the baby and all of a sudden there's something for us to talk about. And most of the time I don't even have to initiate the conversation. So it's been great. She's definitely an easy way in with these kids.
Now, what's her name? Or were you okay with sharing that?
Yeah, her name is Era.
Now, has it been, as you grew up in the United States, and did you grow up in California?
I did. Yeah, we grew up in Los Angeles area.
So as you grew up in over here, it's different, I would think, or you can help me educate me a little. What's it like to have a baby with your American mindset and where you've come from in the Czech Republic?
It's, on one hand, it's been different because I'm trying to think of exact ways. Well, for example, here there's a lot of like organized playtime for like growing up. I did sports, I did ballet, I did swim lessons, I did all these things with other kids. And I think that's something I really value. Like I love that I got to interact with kids my age and do some competitive things. And they don't have really organized programs like that in Czech as much. So that's one thing I think sometimes I feel like, oh, she's missing out on that. But on the other side, I haven't raised a child in California, so I really only know what it's like raising her in Czech. And there's things that I value. Like, for example, they're really big in Czech on being with family and being in nature with family. And that's something I didn't really get here in California. So it's awesome to just get to go, to the local forest or the local park. And there's tons of families just having picnics or exploring trees and plants and, whatever bugs are around. I think it's different, but both of them have their pros and cons, definitely.
Does that become a discovery time for you? Because I'm assuming there are some things that are different types of trees or different types of bugs or whatever that you go, aha. Do you get to do that with her fresh kind of?
Definitely. And to be honest, most of the time, we have like another mom friend or two that I can take with me because I am definitely new to the whole nature thing. It's not something I grew up with. It was always so hot here and it just wasn't really our thing, I guess. It wasn't really my family's thing. So getting to be there and just even, bond with other moms and other Czech families by being out in nature and letting them kind of give us, Nature 101. It's been a cool bonding experience for us too, to the culture. So.
Oh, that's awesome. So now, do you have a group of moms you're able to connect with?
Yeah. So I do have a community there, which has been great. There's a Bible study that I go to with moms that are U.S. missionaries and Czech missionaries in their own country as well. But it's just a good refresher for me to, the dads stay with the babies and we get to come together and talk about our struggles, what's going good, what we can do better, and just a spiritual time to connect around God and around the Word. So it's definitely a vital aspect of my spiritual health in Czech.
So do those mamas give you tips?
Definitely, yes. Yeah, it's also, I think, special for me. I have a lot of Czech friends, which is awesome, and I love that I get to just soak in the culture that way. But it's different talking to a U.S. mom, and they just understand some of the ways my mind works, some of the ways I am accustomed to raising a child. It's just a different connection. So it's really great to have them helping me along, and especially helping me along in a new country. I mean, even like where to get, healthy snacks for a baby, like which stores are the best and things like that. So it's a big help for sure.
See, I think that opens our eyes a little bit, because it's not something we have these ideas in our head about what a missionary is. I think we don't imagine trying to find the right grocery store.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, do you think there are challenges raising a young child in the Czech Republic when so much of the culture is not a Christian culture?
Yeah. I one of the main things that quickly comes to mind is the school system. it might have always been like this, but I think especially after communism, it's a very shame-based school system, which means like if you raise your hand and you get an answer wrong, the way that a teacher will try to help you is by making you look bad in front of the rest of the class so that you won't raise your hand again unless the answer's right.
Oh, wow.
And it's a very difficult thing for a lot of the missionaries that have come before me for their kids to go through, because it's not the way their family culture is. It's not something that they're used to. And it's not something that we agree with. But one of the things that a parent has told me, which just definitely opened my eyes, is, they say, we will send our kid to a regular Czech school because we want them to be immersed in the culture and to bring God to that school. But we always have to remind them the way that your teachers talk to you, the way that they shame you, is not a Czech issue. It's a sin issue. It's sinful to shame someone. And I don't want you to have a negative aspect of Czech or a negative aspect of Czech people, but I want you to understand the difference between something that's a sin or something that is just not the way you like it. And I think it's really opened my eyes to maybe not hating the sinner, but hating the sin, if that makes sense.
Well, definitely. And it's funny because I was thinking about that. I was trying to apply that into my own life as I'm hearing you say that. And I'm thinking it's tempting to just either forget and stop paying attention to what goes in the classroom, or to think that they're the authority and they must know everything. And so because I think we're not the same, but we're not innocent either. And teachers have good days, bad days. They have, so I think that's something that moms here could even think about, is that when a teacher does something that's not appropriate, say they say the wrong thing at the wrong time, which anybody can do, or maybe they themselves come from a harsh background, so they're a harsher kind of a teacher. But it's to be aware that that's a sin issue is huge, and to see that and help our kids see that. So
and
that,
I think that it also maybe, I mean, it can go either way. Like either your kid can think, oh, well, my teacher's a sinner and I'm not going to treat them well, but
let's hope not. Yeah.
If you train them the right way, they can say, oh, my teacher is a sinner just like I am and needs grace just like I am. So when my teacher does something wrong, instead of being offended or want to have ill will towards my teacher, I can say, okay, well, I'm still going to shine Jesus' light and I'm going to give them grace because I was given grace, and I'm going to forgive them because I was forgiven. And I think it's maybe a good way to give perspective to human nature in a young person's life that might not see it yet.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and depending on how long you're there, your kids may want to stay in that area later on. So understanding how to connect and live within that culture is huge.
Yeah. And definitely, I think that's something that my organization, Josiah Venture, does really well, is they always remind us, like, if you are called to Czech, your kid is not coming along with you. It means God called your child to Czech as well. So if you are a missionary, your child is a missionary. And if you give them that mindset when they go to school every day, they are already learning what it means to share Jesus and to show his love, not that they're just a child along for the ride.
Now, because she is so young, I mean, obviously a lot of this is stuff that that you're looking ahead on, and people are helping you to have the eyes to prep for. But right now, where she is right now, how do you feel like you can help her with her faith at 1.5? I mean, that's something I don't think a lot of people think of.
Yeah, that's true. Well, to be honest, I probably could be doing it better. I think that's not something I think about as much as I could. But I think the season that we're in right now, one of the ways we really try to show her God or show her Jesus is just by living it. Like a lot of times when, and this isn't wrong, but this is just what God told me, that it's easy to say, oh, I'm not going to go out to this ministry event because I'm just going to be chasing the baby the whole time. Or I'm not going to go serve here because I'll barely be able to impact people because I'm just going to be paying attention to the baby. Mm-hmm. But I think really early on, God and a couple of the other missionaries in my area said, you have to understand you are growing her faith and growing her understanding of what ministry is by taking her. And even if that means you are, sitting up in the top of the pew in a church, chasing her around, you don't understand even the impact that can have on kids that are watching you. They could see, oh, that's what Christianity looks like in a family, that they come and they support their dad or their husband, even when it's not easy or even when it doesn't feel like they're doing much. So I think that's a big way God is teaching me to build her faith or to build her understanding of what ministry looks like, is just take her along, even when it's not easy, and show her from a young age what ministry looks like and what faith in God looks like in action.
That sounds awesome. As a former children's pastor, if I can encourage you on that, because kids are just such sponges, and they will take in everything. And so just simple things like, Jesus loves me. He really, really, really loves me because my mommy tells me so, and my mommy really, really loves me. I mean, that may be all she's able to get at that age, but that's huge.
Yeah, for sure.
That's awesome. Now, how can we be praying for you as you guys are? Now we're recording this now in the summer, but this is gonna come out in the fall. How can we be praying for you as people hear this fresh?
Yeah, I would say definitely this is a season where things start to pick up pretty quickly. So heading towards the end of the year, things get really busy, which is great. But I think you can be praying for our, I hate to use the word balance, but like our balance, I guess, a healthy balance of ministry and family life, just understanding where our boundaries need to be as far as ministry. And there's just so much work to be done. Sometimes it's hard for us to say no. Mm-hmm. So I think if you can be praying for us to know when to say no, when to say yes, and how to keep our family the healthiest and the priority in the midst of that.
So you basically, it's which ministry to focus on at which time, the ministry at home or the ministry out of the home.
That's a great way to put it. Yep, for sure.
So what about, do you have a favorite Bible verse?
Well, that definitely changes from season to season, I would say. Right now, I think Ephesians 3:20 through 21, this is my paraphrase, but it says, to him that is able to do exceedingly above all that we can dare, ask, and think, to him be the glory. I think that's been speaking to me because I'm definitely living in beyond what I could have dreamed up. I didn't think I was going to be a missionary, let alone in Czech Republic, let alone with a child that I'm raising there. So I'm living in that, but I just, like, as verse 21 says, I just want God to get the glory for that and be able to share my story and share what we're doing, all for God's glory.
That's awesome. I love that. Are you now, out of curiosity, if we've got Bible moms listening who are raising 1.5-year-olds right now, what would you say to somebody to encourage them?
Ooh. Well, I think something that God has been teaching me, has taught me, and is continuing to teach me is just reminding me that I'm not just a mom, which being a mom it's the biggest blessing and it's such a privilege. But sometimes I can get stuck in a routine where I just think, I have these gifts that God has given me, and I have these, things that I want to go do in the world, but I'm just a mom. And I think God's just been teaching me, like, this is a season of your life where you're a full-time mom, but your gifts are being used for your child, and how special is that? And even if you are able to just go out once a week and you get to go to the grocery store, okay, I'm going to make the most of that grocery store trip, and I'm going to be a blessing to everyone who I run into on that grocery store trip. And it's important. I think it's hard for me sometimes to feel not as productive as before I was a mom, or not as valuable to the world, if that makes sense. But I think God's just been really showing me, and I would encourage other moms of babies or toddlers, that you're just as valuable and God is using you just as much in this season. So take advantage of where you are.
That's awesome. Yeah. Cause I remember feeling like, oh my gosh, my world shrunk and I'm not sure if I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
And yet at the same time, there are a lot of people whose eyes are on you when you're at that grocery store, when you're loving on your little girl. So you never know what more you are also doing.
That's true. Yeah.
So how can we support you in your ministry and pray for that mission you have in the Czech Republic?
Yeah, thank you. So we're with an organization called Josiah Venture. So you can go to josiahventure.com/Simon, which is my last name, Simon. And we have everything on there, what we do, how to get involved, how to pray for us, how to give. So if you go to that website, that would be great.
Awesome. Yeah, well, I will make sure that that's in our show notes so that
Awesome.
people can link on that. And I just want to thank you so much for your time. I know you're here for a short time and you're pulling away from whatever other stuff you've got scheduled to do this. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It's really great. I look forward to listening to the other podcasts too.
Hopefully we can talk to other missionaries at different times, but thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Paula.
Well, mamas, as I wrap up that interview with Anissa, I want to encourage you to check out the show notes. I'll have that link for you so that you could help support them. If you're not aware, missionaries, when they go out, they have to get support from other people just to be able to do what they're doing. So it's because of people who give donations to them, they're able to be there. And it's because of those donations that they're able to make a difference in the Czech Republic. If that's something you would like to involve your family in, it's awesome to get yourselves outside of your bubble and be connected with people in other parts of the world. Even to just talk with your kids about it and see what's going on and let your kids imagine something different. It's a great way to build your own faith. I've enjoyed this time we have together. I know you have plenty of things to do and many options. So thank you for listening. Remember, love is patient, love is kind, and that is never more real than in our families. God bless you and have a great week.